Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for another episode of Panning Leadership. This is Randy Hawes, and I'm going to introduce Jason Leger and Chris Sutterfield as they come to us from camp where they're talking about influencing young people. One of the things they're talking about is influencing young people that are maybe coming from a troubled environment and some of the challenges and things, techniques that you can use to do that. Now, how does this apply to business and in organizations? Well, I think that you'll see that there's many parallels between what they talk about and what it takes to actually lead an organization of any size. The number one thing is they're talking about building influence and what it takes to do that. That's critical as a leader to understand, because influence is the currency of leadership. And the leader's job is an economic one when it comes to influence, and that is their job is to invest in such a way that they get influence back into the bank, and then spend the influence in such a way that they set the market prices to be affordable for future spends of influence. So what I mean by this is you can come at things from a hammer and nail approach where I've got the power and you're going to do things my way or the highway. And what you've done in that is you're going to get influence because there's power, and power moves people, so there's going to be influence. But you're going to pick up pennies from that investment rather than picking up hundreds or thousands or hundred thousands or whatever, depending on how skilled you are with building the influence. But the second thing you're doing is you're setting the market price of that next interaction to be a higher cost of influence. So if you go at somebody and this is my way or the highway, and really can't stand your work, and you either can come up to speed or you can get out and we can replace you. Well, you've spent some influence that you had. You've played the power card. You've given that out there. You've spent that influence. But you've also caused them to raise the price that you're going to have to pay the next time you want to get something out of them, to get some sort of interaction. So if you want to make big changes in a company, if you want to inspire people or get people to reach their maximum potential, you want to have the kind of organization that can pivot on a dime in response to the market or in response to competition. Then you've got to have the currency to pay the price for doing that, because there is a price for all of those interactions. And a skilled leader not only pays the price, but does so in such a way that the market price for the next interaction is lower rather than higher. And so it's important. And so listening to Jason and Chris, you'll hear that some of the things that they talk about it takes patience. And it takes understanding the context of people. Everybody has carryovers. Everybody has things that bleed over from their personal lives. I know we want to check that baggage at the door when we come into the office, but to think that there is no context outside of the office as a manager is a naive assumption, and it's going to limit how much influence you can reap in return. So everybody has context, and a skilled communicator, a skilled manager, sets themselves apart from others by being able to merge those contexts. In other words, I have a context, the company has a context, and my audience has a context. A very skilled communicator and an effective leader can merge my context and the organization's context and my audience's context. And Jason calls it painting the picture. Really, one of the most important things for a leader to be able to do is to take that communication and to gain those communication skills of being able to merge those contexts. Leaders should focus on how to understand the context that they're in, and then how to merge the context to really get maximum benefit. And as you hear Jason and Chris, you'll hear them talking about being patient and using the right timing. So very important in business, so very important as a leader of any size. And finally, they talk about being authentic in here. And Jason refers to encounter with his chiropractor when he's talking about this, not too happy with hearing how long a treatment plan is going to take, but appreciates the chiropractor being upfront with him. And so authenticity is probably the best way to reap the maximum amount of influence from any given interaction with people. It's scary, though, from experience. Authenticity is scary. You don't want to be vulnerable as a leader. A lot of times you want to be guarded. You don't want to let people in. And there's certainly some boundaries that you need to be set. It should be a topic for another discussion. But there are boundaries. Being authentic doesn't mean being an open book where everybody knows everything. But it does being genuine. Second thing is not only is it scary, but people are skeptical. And people are skeptical because, frankly, they're used to being sold a bill of goods. And that's kind of become the default posture, is that we're being sold a bill of goods. So I don't really trust you any further than I can throw you, so to speak. So being in it for the long haul as a leader, proving that you're being authentic for the sake of being authentic rather than for the sake of manipulation is going to gain the maximum amount of currency as far as leadership goes, as far as influence goes. So, hey, let's take a quick break here from our sponsor and then dive right in with Jason and Chris. I want to take a moment to thank Anchor for providing this tool for us. It really does make it super easy to make a podcast. My first time making it, it went off without a hitch. They give you all the tools and everything that you need right from the start. It's free. There's no paywall where you have to go and get premium stuff just to do simple things like add background music or art or anything like that. They distribute it for you, so they'll package it up, help you package it up, push it out to Apple, to iTunes, to Spotify, to Google Podcasts, and many others. And then they'll help you set it up to where you can make money off of it. So why don't you join me and get to podcasting? Go download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you.
This is Jason Leger with the Sharpstone Group, and you're listening to Painting Leadership. And today I'm with a very special guest, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Chris Sutterfield. I'm the Family Youth Minister at Moore Central Church of Christ.
And today we were going to talk about some things when we're talking about trying to influence younger people, maybe people who don't have as much of experience in a certain particular way, or we want to have some sort of influence or get them to go in a certain direction, whether that's parents, as Christian leaders, or things like that. And maybe some things that we've seen that seems to work well, challenges along those lines. And I'll go ahead and start with one observation. And that is the things that we can't control. And that's really what happens at home with some of these people and where they come from. And this is all the way up into their 20s, really, the experiences that they've had. And here we are trying to be leaders. Maybe we're their boss. Maybe we're influential in their lives in some way. But what's happened at home for the last 20 years has affected them like it would affect anybody. And so what can we do So the challenge is, how do we influence somebody who comes from a background, especially if they're younger, that maybe goes against or is contrary to, kind of what we're trying to get them to either understand or do or a practice or break a habit, whatever it is. What are some things we've seen that's effective and not effective in that? So Chris, give me an example of maybe something you've seen that, a younger person and maybe some challenges that they had that you were trying to help them overcome, but they certainly had a background that was holding them back from really getting there. And maybe what your approach may have been.
I'm not thinking of a specific example right now, and maybe one will come to me. But when I think of maybe kids being raised and taught morally wrong choices in the home, those are ingrained in them. It's okay for them to do those things. And in order for us to be able to have an influence on them, it takes patience, it takes time and understanding that young person, and trying to get in their mindset and to understand where they've come from, and setting your eyes on the goal of where we want to lead them to. But knowing that it's gonna be a journey to get there. It's not something that just happens overnight. So, no specific examples are coming to mind right now.
Well, I think that's the big point, is the patience factor. I mean, how do you undo, 18 years, 15 years, 20 years? And if you're going to be a leader of anyone that's that's younger, whatever, that winds up meaning, you have to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Are you really dedicated to influencing and impacting this person? And I think that can be even in the business world as a mentor. You don't, there's a lot of trades out there even that I think that, like, I think electrician, I forget how long they have to be a journeyman and follow. And
Right.
it's a long time before they get to where they need to be. And then sometimes we expect young people to just change their lives overnight, and that's just not realistic.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind whenever you're asking this question is how do we change someone? How do we influence a young person? It sounds cliche, but someone doesn't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that's where the time and the patience comes in, and letting them see, man, they really love me. They're investing in me, and if I haven't invested in a person, but yet I'm trying to tell them how to live and what to do, what do they care about what I know and what they should do? But if I show that person I care about you, and I I even show them the right way to go and show them that I'm willing to make sacrifices along the way, even sacrificing my time to be with them, it starts having an effect on them that they see something in me, and it pricks their heart, and they start slowly changing, to where they might even ask you sometime, why are you doing this? It's because I love you. It's because you're important. You've got something to share with the world, and I want to help you. I want to help you get there. I want to help you make right choices, and it opens a door for letting them maybe see the wrong living that has gone on, and gives you the opportunity to talk about, hey, this behavior, I know, I can see it. You were taught this growing up. Do you see how it's wrong? And maybe now they start going, yeah, I do. I've struggled with that. And I don't know why I've struggled with it. Mom and dad did it. But I always thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've got an opportunity to show them what's right without putting them down, without crucifying their parents and making them look like the bad guys. I've done it all in a gentle and loving approach, and I influence them in a positive way that makes them want to change.
Yeah. And the more that I look at some of these things, and I was saying this at a business meeting this morning, is that you have got to paint the picture for people. You've got to paint that picture. And I think we see Christ doing that a lot. He took the time to really paint a much different picture so people knew what they were going towards. And that's not something that happens quickly, because the picture that's been painted is sometimes can be very negative, whether it's hopelessness, or I can't trust anybody, or people turn their back on me, or if I make a mistake, they're going to react in a certain way. And it takes time for them to realize, you're not that way. You're going to be a mentor. You're going to be a leader. You're somebody I can follow. And so it really comes down to, from a leader's perspective, are you committed? I think it's, are you committed to being that leader that's going to actually be there for the time it takes? It's almost like when you go into, I think, for a medical treatment, a lot of times they're like, I went to the chiropractor and he's like, you're going to have to be here 28 times before you'll see results. Yeah. But at least he told me that, and he's going to do it for the long haul. Of course, he's getting paid, but at the same time, he knows that this is not an overnight fix. And so I think it's just such a good point that the patience factor and the commitment factor, which, by the way, I think is what these kids are looking for.
Yeah.
No one's ever been committed to me before. No one's ever had the patience with me before. No one's truly wanted to stick it out with me before. And not every kid's that way, but there's some extreme cases where, they're waiting to see if you're going to disappoint them like every other adult.
Right.
And that's just, it's really sad, because as adults, we're impatient, we're busy. But, we have to ask ourselves as leaders of anybody who's young, and again, whatever category that winds up being, age-wise, can we really truly call ourselves a leader of the younger generation if we don't have the patience to stick it out and get them to where they need to be?
Right. Something that came to mind, you mentioning Christ, is his apostles. We look at them and historically we go, man, those are the most godly men ever. But then we really think about them, and when they were with Christ on earth, every once in a while they would say the right things, they would do the right things. Peter, he said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," and Jesus says, "That's right," and he praises him for it. And then just a few verses later, Jesus says, "I'm going to have to die," and Peter starts cursing them. That idea, no, you never. And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." And then right before Jesus ascends up into heaven, they still don't get Jesus. And they said, "Is this the time that you're going to restore the kingdom to Israel?" And he goes, "Oh." And he tells them what they're going to do. But they didn't get it. I mean, so they didn't understand, the apostles didn't understand exactly that Jesus' kingdom wasn't physical, it was spiritual, even to the point of him going into heaven and giving them the last instructions. But we look at Jesus and his relationship with them, he was patient, he was patient, he was patient. And he just kept watering them. He kept building them up into the people that he knew they could be. And I think you said, looking at the end in mind, or keeping the end in mind, painting that picture for them, Jesus saw the potential that his apostles had to be in him, the potential they had in him, in God, and he pulled that out of them over time, and it took a lot of time.
Yeah, he's a master of timing. You even see in the Bible, I think, where he very purposely said things in ways to not reveal certain things yet.
Right.
Or he wanted to make a very particular point at a certain time and then waited for other things. Even you look at Lazarus, he could have not let Lazarus die, but he let certain things unfold because he needed to make an impact in a certain way.
Right.
And that's the same thing with us when we influence people. What is the correct timing of how to roll out this plan of influencing them? What do they need to know now? If you lay it all on them immediately, it's just not going to work. It's too much. But how do you roll it out? What's kind of the plan to get them to where they need to be? So, all right, Chris. Well, thanks for this.
Thanks for letting me talk and join you.
That's right. And we're coming to you live from a church camp. So we've got youth all around us. It's reminding us of what our journey is with them, what the challenges are. And it's very encouraging and also very challenging, and want to make sure and encourage and challenge all those who are leading people, especially young people, and tell them to stick with it and be very diligent in how they approach that, and be in it for the long haul with them, because they definitely do need good people, good leadership. Sometimes they do have a background that's kind of got them, a couple steps back, but certainly some of us can hopefully get them a couple steps forward. Thanks for listening to Panning Leadership. And if you have any questions, please send them to us. We'll be happy to chat.